Hey, Clemson family, let's get updated on Xavier Thomas's injury after defensive coordinator Wes Goodwin spoke Monday. We'll also look at another preseason All-America poll with some big Clemson names.
I'm Daniel Shirley. We'll break down the AP Top 25 and look at Clemson's most recent commit.
I'm Bill Zimmerman, and welcome to episode 15 of the Reign Supreme Alway podcast. Go ahead and tap that subscribe or follow button so we can keep you up with the latest big happenings in Clemson sports and you won't miss out. You can find our homepage at clemsonkickoff.com. We're on all the major podcast apps when you just search Clemson. We're on Twitter at Clemson Kickoff, and we upload our audio to youtube.com/Clemson Kickoff, where we also post shorts when big news breaks. Wherever you listen, we're glad you found us. Well, let's get into what Wes Goodwin had to say about Xavier Thomas. He was having surgery the day we record this, which is Monday the 15th. He's apparently going to be out 4 to 6 weeks, according to Goodwin.
That's not great news, Bill, but it's better than maybe what the outcome could have been if it was a more serious injury. So it sounds like Xavier is going to be back in a few weeks. He's not going to miss the whole season, and he'll be back on that defensive line soon.
There's all kind of word out there where he wouldn't miss significant time, but you also saw his tweet where it sounded like he would be out for quite a while, kind of hit in the middle there. So glad to see that he, if he stays on this schedule, might be able to return the week of the NC State game, maybe.
That would be big because that Clemson is going to need him in that game. Hopefully he'll be back for that game, and that would be a boost for that defense going into what could be a huge game. So getting him back earlier than maybe later would be a huge boost for this defensive line.
I kind of wonder if he does fall a little bit behind that schedule. Does he make the trip to BC? Does he make the trip to Florida State? You might not see him until after the bye week in November, but let's hope the outlook is on point and maybe he could get in a little bit against Wake, or maybe just practice leading up to making his debut for that NC State game. In the meantime, a couple of names out there who might step up into the regular defensive end rotation behind starters Myles Murphy, KJ Henry, and then top backup Justin Maskell.
It looks like two of the players to keep an eye on are Kevin Swint and Cade Denoff. They look like they might be next up on the depth chart, according to what Wes said today. I'm a big fan of Kevin Swint. I really am expecting him to take this chance and run with it. This is a big chance for one of those guys or both of them to step into that spot left by Thomas's injury and really give this defense another weapon on the outside. So that's exciting to see. I know you don't want anybody to get hurt, and especially a player like Xavier Thomas, but to see these young guys get their opportunity, that's really what I'm looking forward to and seeing how they handle that moving forward.
We've seen Clemson coaches move a tackle outside, and there's a lot of depth at tackle, but probably the guy most likely to fit that mold would be Brian Brzee. And coming off an injury himself, that might not be what the coaches are wanting to do there. A lot of depth at linebacker too, and you wonder if maybe Vontae Bentley could fit that mold, or obviously Trenton Simpson with a ton of athleticism could be someone to move out to edge as well.
Both of those guys could do it. I don't have any doubt. There's pieces here, right, Bill? That's the key, and that's what's important to remember is that there are pieces. Now, do they bring what Xavier brings? No, but they can do something a little bit different. Maybe they rush the passer. Maybe they can drop in coverage. There's a lot that they can do there from that spot. So it makes sense that they would look at all the options. Kevin Swint, Cade Denoff, the linebackers you mentioned. I would think all of those options would be on the table for the coaches, at least while Xavier's out of action.
Probably the lightest portion of the schedule is those first 4 games as well. Collectively, Georgia Tech, obviously Furman, Louisiana Tech, and Wake Forest. So they've got some ability to experiment, or maybe even just put some things on tape that they don't really intend, but might have to keep opponents honest.
There's time, and you don't know with these injuries how long it's going to take Xavier to get back, and everybody's different. We know that. We've seen that with injuries in the past. But that's what I like about this defense is there are so many pieces these guys can get right and get used to playing this position against some competition that Clemson should win these games.
Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's one way that we can keep you up to speed on analysis of the biggest news around Clemson sports. Well, let's talk about the newest commit. He's the 20th guy in the class of 2023, and that is wide receiver Ronan Hanafin. He runs 6'3" and 205, and he's out of Cambridge, Massachusetts.
I love this pickup for the class. He's a terrific athlete. He's one of the best athletes in the country. Where will they use him at wide receiver? We'll have to find out, but this is a really big get for the Clemson coaching staff. They needed a second wide receiver in this class. Do they get a third? We'll see, but this was a big one, but I can't wait to see what he brings to the program next fall.
Anna Adams of 24/7 has tweeted that Hanafin said he will start as a boundary receiver when he gets to Clemson. We'll see if his plans pan out that way once he gets on campus and the coaches get a look at him on the field. Interesting here that Clemson wide receiver coach Tyler Grisham beat out another former Tiger, that's Notre Dame wide receiver coach Chancey Stuckey, in order to get Hanafin into Tiger Town. His other finalists were Bama and BC.
That's a good group, isn't it? Right? You beat Alabama, you beat Notre Dame to get a player. I don't care what position it is. You know that's a good get. I know a lot of people get caught up in stars, and he's a 5-star, he's a 4-star. I like to look more at who has offered the player, and Alabama and Notre Dame is as good as it gets. BC's got a good program as well. So this was a good pickup for sure. And again, really excited to see what he brings next year. I think he's going to have a big senior year, and I know Clemson fans will be looking forward to getting him in the fold when he joins the program.
Most services seem to have Hanafin as a 4-star and ranked in the teens, either as Most services seem to have Hanafin in the teens in their rankings, either as an athlete or as a wide receiver, and as a 4-star overall, which isn't a bad resume to have. I think the question now for Clemson is, are they done? Supposedly there were 2 wide receiver slots in this class, but you wonder if they would take a third if someone talented enough says, hey, I really want to be there.
I think so, Bill. I mean, there's some openings in the class. It doesn't feel like the class has reached its limit yet. So if they had somebody who fit that level and who fits what they want, I believe they would add a third receiver. With all the recent injuries and the injury problems that this program has had at wide receiver the past couple of years, there mightn't be that need as well, just to get more bodies in that room to see who would fit best. So we'll see where the coaches go from here, but this class is coming together really nicely. We've talked about it all summer, how well they've recruited in this 2023 class, and it doesn't look like they're done anytime soon.
Be sure to follow us on Twitter at Clemson Kickoff. We've got updates for you there. We'll retweet news as it breaks. We'll give you some quick hit opinions as well in real time. Well, now let's get into that preseason top 25 from the Associated Press, usually one of the more credible preseason top 25s. And they've got Clemson checking in at number 4, which seemingly would put the Tigers back in the playoff for the 7th time in 8 years.
That feels about right to me. I know that a lot of people might say Clemson's too high coming off of what happened last year. But what I'm hearing about the team in preseason camp, what I know about this group coming back, this defense, if the offense has improved at quarterback and offensive line, and we're hearing those things, if Joseph Ngata can be what we think he can be and stay healthy, this feels like this is a playoff team to me, or at least in the hunt. And 4 sounds about right going into the season.
That slots them in one spot behind defending national champ. Do we really want to mention them by name? And one spot ahead of November opponent and playoff era rival Notre Dame. By the way, leading that top 5 was Alabama number 1, Ohio State number 2.
Usual suspects, right, Bill? It feels like it's always going to be that same group at the top going into the season. I really believe that this is about right, this top group. I think Alabama is dangerous coming off losing in the championship game last year. And I think Ohio State might be the most talented team in the country. And can it finally live up to that and win another national title? So if Clemson is in that hunt, I think we're looking for a really good year for the Tigers.
I have to admit, I'm a little surprised that the national writers are putting Clemson that high. I'd kind of wondered if the coaches poll was a little more Dabo friendly than a lot of the writers are. So it's interesting to see that Clemson still garners that respect among people who are outside of the Southeast and kind of looking in and realizing still a talented program, still a really strong coaching staff. There's been a lot of criticism almost that Clemson has to replace both coordinators in 1 year. A lot of unfamiliarity with the names who are rising up, but when you realize the resume that Wes Goodwin brings to the table, when you realize that Brandon Streeter has been a successful offensive coordinator at Richmond in the past, comes in with coaching genes in his family. His dad was a longtime coach. A lot of reasons to be optimistic about that coaching staff. And then seemingly there's just nowhere to go but up for that Clemson offense, and especially the offensive line.
Exactly. And I think the offensive line is coming together. I know Dabo Swinney has talked about it in the preseason, they like what they've seen of this group. And it feels like there are more pieces there than maybe there were last year. And I hope there are, because there weren't many pieces that fit last year, and that was a huge part of the offensive problem. So sounds like DJ is playing better. Sounds like the offensive line is coming together, and that gives you as a Clemson fan a little bit more hope for that group. And then on the other side, the defense is just so talented, Bill, that really the only question mark I see is, we talked about Xavier Thomas's injury. Who fills his role? Maybe you'd look at some question marks at cornerback, but everything else seems like it fits perfectly, and that defense is going to be really, really good.
You look around the rest of the ACC, 5 teams made the AP top 25. NC State, who we referenced will be that week 5 matchup, they check in at number 13. Behind them is number 16, Miami. Popular pick, including my own, to win that Coastal Division. We have Pitt at number 17, right behind them. And then Wake Forest still checking in at number 22, making the poll despite the injury to quarterback Sam Hartman recently.
Wake Forest surprised me. I don't know that I could pick them as a top 25 with him being injured. Again, we don't know how long he will be out, so maybe he's back in time to give this team a boost. So we'll see how that plays out. But a good performance here from the ACC, I think, in the preseason poll. And I know a lot of people bang on the ACC for not being quite as good as the other conferences, and a lot of the times that's right. But 5 teams in the AP preseason poll is a really good start for this conference.
Also, some preseason nominations for some individual Tigers. That's with the All-America team from theathletic.com, where we see Miles Murphy and Brian Brzee checking in as defensive line teammates on their All-America first team at The Athletic.
Yeah, there's some really smart people who work at The Athletic, so we should listen. We should listen to them. And my coworkers have a really good handle on these preseason teams. And Bill, if you said, okay, who's going to be on the preseason teams from Clemson, you would think, okay, somebody from the defense. And these are the 3 who really make sense. And Miles Murphy, terrific player. I think he's going to have a huge year. I really do. And we're going to see him live up to the hype this year. He's had a good career. I think he's going to take it to another level this year and just be dominant. Brian Brzee makes a lot of sense. He's a really talented player. What does it say about him to be on a preseason All-America team, even though he only played a few games last year? And then Trenton Simpson. Trenton Simpson is as good athletically as anybody we've seen come through Clemson in a long time. So really excited about those 3, and those guys make a lot of sense to be on this preseason All-America team.
If I was going to split hairs, I might put Simpson ahead of Brzee just because he comes in healthy and Brzee is coming back from injury. Simpson is on the second team. I imagine those 3 guys are typically going to be the combo of some sort in pretty much all the All-America honors. Now, the thing for me, nobody on offense, and you understand it, it's hard to disagree with, but gosh, what a change that is, and what an eye-opener it is to look at the Clemson program in that way. Really built off of offense. Even when Tommy Bowden started turning things around for the Tigers, the skill position players who were just stealing headlines and grabbing the spotlight, and rightfully so. Here we are this year coming into 2022 season with no offensive All-Americans. Just kind of takes me back.
It does, but it makes sense. And I think the offense is going to be much better than it was last year. But this makes sense going into the season after what we saw in 2021 from this program. There's a lot of questions about the offensive line still. There's a lot of questions about quarterback. Even a Will Shipley didn't have huge stats last year, even though we know what he is and what kind of talent he is. He's going to split carries, with 2 other backs, and Kobe Pace and Phil Maffa. And there's also not the extreme talent at wide receiver that we've seen, at least experienced talent. There's some new guys there. There's some guys maybe who can step into that next role, but they haven't shown it yet. So this makes a lot of sense. I believe the offense is going to be a lot better, but going into this season, defense is going to be the focal point for this team.
And like I said, you can't argue the lack of offensive guys out there. Hopefully it ends up serving as motivation a little bit. Hopefully it's an eye-opener inside the football facility as much as it is to someone outside like myself. Well, if any news breaks in the next few days, we're going to react to that, make sure we get it out there to you one way or another, via Twitter, via our YouTube channel. Daniel, anything you're keeping an eye out for?
I love all the reports that we're getting from the Clemson Riders, so keep an eye on those. Clemson basketball team is wrapping up its trip to France. Look ahead to the soccer teams and the other teams that are starting this fall. So there's a lot going on campus. Can't wait to break it all down for you.
Currently have our first guest scheduled for our next episode, and it's a super special one. I'm really looking forward to that. And I hope everyone has enjoyed this episode. We're glad you found us, Clemson family, so go ahead and smash that subscribe button or that follow button. You can stay up to speed every time we react to the big news that's happening around Clemson athletics. Our homepage has some great resources and an easy-to-read schedule with kickoff times as they're announced, so be sure to check that out at clemsonkickoff.com. You can play all our episodes there, even our shorts. Plus, you'll find all our podcast links too, so you can take us on the go. You can follow us on Twitter at Clemson Kickoff, where we retweet news as it happens and give a few opinions as well in real time. Until next time, I'm Bill Zimmerman.
I'm Daniel Shirley. Go Tigers.
Go ahead and tap that subscribe or follow button so we can keep you up with the latest. No, I ran out of breath.